Well, good afternoon, boa tarde, buenas tardes, whatever language you might not have heard yet this morning. There you go. That's why I'm here. So quick background about me, and then we're going to get into it. I have spent the last 11 years and change helping global organizations build and scale technology to the enterprise in emerging markets. What does that look like? I was at a company before the GDPR was effectuated and enforceable. We did that in a couple of different regions around the world. I've been most recently at an organization that was a hyperscaler, think the Amazon marketplace or the Azure marketplace, but independent vendor, and now helping to grow the team at Airia. And what I want to talk about today is just some practical applications. We're not going to get overly in the weeds because I know that there are a lot of people in this room that are a lot smarter than I am. I have no ego in admitting that whatsoever. But I do want to talk through a couple of considerations around AI in practice and what organizations are struggling with. Data is the new oil. We all just heard it 25 minutes ago, 30 minutes ago, and I couldn't agree more. But organizations have, in truth, been saying that for a little while, right? An organization's most valuable asset has been its data. Well, if you are now getting conversations from a board of directors, from executives who are asking questions about what is being done with AI, it's not just about the data anymore, right? It's about what is your AI strategy? How are we integrating it across different data sources? How are we enabling our teams to use it? What are the models that we're using, right? What's our supply chain around AI, and how are we going to incorporate it not into just our own business practice and process, but how are we going to expose AI into our customer-facing applications, as an example? A lot of organizations started with a chatbot, and they're now kind of still with a chatbot trying to figure out what's next, right? So from a practical reality standpoint, it's about how you use your data and how you use AI to enrich what you do from a day-to-day perspective. But there's an elephant in the room. There's actually probably a couple elephants in the room, but let's focus on one. How do you actually do this? How do you scale it out, right? How do you make it effective while also managing within certain guardrails, certain tolerances around governance, around regulatory issues, right? And in practice, what we see with organizations today is some of those things that I mentioned around regulatory and security concerns, IP protection. Everybody in this room knows that those are concerns that they have to address, right? But what about cost? Who in the room can comfortably say that they know exactly down to the pound or the dollar or the euro how much AI deployment costs them within their organization today? Right. That's about what we'd expect, right? And that's okay. That's what is happening across the world right now. Let's also think about brand and reputational risk, which takes it a step further beyond just what do you need to do to comply with a law. Obviously, we have the AI Act that has now been put through in the European Union and will become enforceable, right? But how do we maintain trust with our internal employees? How do we maintain trust with consumers, right? And do we have a leg to stand on when we say we're going to use AI in responsible and governed and controlled ways? These are all issues that are pervasive within organizations today, but let's also talk about innovation. Many of you might have seen that just 2 weeks ago, Hugging Face announced that over 1 million models have now been deployed across the world, right? And in practice, at the beginning of this year, the top of the charts leaderboard model providers were staying there at around 60 days for individual models, and it's now down to less than 20 on average, right? So the rate of change in this industry is constant. You have models that are going to continue to be removed from support. They're going to be deprecated. But even beyond that, how do you know which model makes sense for a particular use case? Is it practical to think that you have to use the least expensive or the most expensive model out there that you could use for every single use case? If we're really honest with ourselves, the answer is no. And it's also not necessarily fiscally responsible for us to use the most expensive models as part of our processing and our day-to-day operations for all use cases because, let's face it, that is, in a word, overkill sometimes, right? So what we have to think about is how do we really create that level of proliferation that our organization is looking for? And a few years ago, things started coming out, and even more recently with the mass sort of deployment and adoption around Copilot, AI started out as AI for experts and maybe some basic functionality to help executives be a little bit more efficient with their day. Where we are in practice today in conversation is AI for specialists. You've got some more proliferation, you've got different models, different use cases that organizations have developed, but it's still not this mass adoption of every employee who sits at a desk or every employee who has a field-based edge device for some type of maintenance activity, right? And so there's still that next level of aspirational proliferation and adoption that organizations are trying to drive towards. But as we really look at how we effectuate that, where most organizations are today in practice is on the left-hand side of this slide. You've got high risk because you don't have governance and controls. You don't know all of the things that people are potentially going to go do on a personal account that they have. You're not 100% sure about some of the results that you're getting back from the model usage that you have. And so you go out and spend time and money. Maybe you bring in outside prompt consultants, right, or prompt engineers to help you figure out how to use AI better, right? All of these things are practical issues and what could represent risk for organizations. And where organizations want to go is that shift to the right, where you've got less risk, you've got better results, you have the ability to scale out the use of AI across multiple domains, multiple use cases, multiple models even, or perhaps you've even actually brought in some in-house specialism to take foundational models, refine, approach, tweak, continue to iterate, right? These are all practical things that organizations want to do, but in most cases, there's a fundamental problem. This is not easy to do. It's great for me to stand up here and sit here and talk about it, right? But it's just not easy to do. We hear that every day, and I'm sure all of you do as well, and you're probably practitioners in many cases that are living some of these challenges as well, right? So, and I know that this is a really wonky, clearly AI-generated image, right, of an AI robot or a robot squeezing the orange, right? But the question that organizations have to ask right now fundamentally and are asking frequently in our experience, is the juice worth the squeeze, so to speak? We actually believe it is, right? And it's why, and I'm not going to pitch everybody, I promise, we're getting to the real stuff here. It's why we've built an AI orchestration platform that is designed to help organizations take on these challenges from the very beginning of how you're deploying AI and the life cycles that you're going through and testing and initial iteration and just coming up with ideas for use cases, or for organizations that have been working, and refining their own models and have deployed across applications internally, externally for quite a long time. That is our goal at Airia, is to help organizations orchestrate and maximize on the investments around AI that they are putting into practice today, right? But let's talk for some of the practitioners in the room about some more real-life use cases that you're probably already seeing about what this looks like in practice. This is really simple, right? This is a really, really simple wireframe of how an organization can incorporate AI today. You've got an app, got somebody sending in a question from that user interface of the app, hits a GPT model, returns a response, right? That's your output. This is about as simple as it gets, and this has been around for quite a long time. Organizations, though, may have multiple applications that have some slightly different use cases, slightly different needs. So maybe you've standardized on OpenAI as the provider, but you've got different versions of the models they provide that are providing different levels of output, results, quality to what you're trying to achieve. There's also different costs that you might get from this. An even more advanced example is you've got multiple applications, but you're also using multiple model providers. So you've gone in, somebody's gone in and created an account. You're working with each of these models. You've got to start developing some specialty around each of these, as well as maintaining the applications and the infrastructure that these are built into, which is where the next point comes in around infrastructure. What are the data sources that we're exposing to those models through those applications, right? And if we want to go a step further from there, we've got maybe static and dynamic data sources in the mix, where we've got certain tasks that we actually want to incorporate into this, or different records that are getting updated that are part of this entire value chain, right? We can make it even more complex. We now want to introduce some context and user-specific memory to provide context from previous results, previous work that we've done. And all of a sudden, before we know it, this is what we have. We've got multiple applications running and updating multiple data sources, pulling multiple points of context, and you're iterating on those models, you're tuning, you're trying to figure out what is going to work to make your business better. And at this point, I'm kind of looking at this and going, no, I don't think so. I don't think this is for me. But the point is, there is a way to manage this. There is a way to orchestrate it. It can be done centrally. Of course, I'm not going to sit here and say that even with the right platform, the right technology, this isn't a horribly complex thing to go through, because that would be an ignorant statement. We all know that it is. No matter how great the tech is, no matter how smart your people are, no matter how good the frameworks and programs and all those things are, it's going to be tough, right? And this is a journey that all of us in this room, given that we've committed the time to be here at this event, believe is ultimately going to be worth it, right? So that's what we're driving towards. I got through that much quicker than I actually anticipated doing. So I know I was only supposed to have 5 minutes. I don't know how that works. But the point is, I'm here to have a conversation with you. Airia is at booth, or stand, sorry, we are in Europe, W40. We would love to have a chat with you. I'm there with a team of people who are really committed to helping organizations figure out how they are going to adapt their uses around AI. And I don't know, generally speaking, I think I'm somewhat pleasant, so come have a chat. I'm more than happy to engage with anybody in a conversation.
So when you say you want to chat, now is the chance for questions. So does anyone have a question? I know you side, you asked the questions last time, so you've got a high potential of asking more questions. But you folks, have time for a question? I'm going to count down 3, 2, 1. First question, please. Thank you. See, lively bunch. It's not like anyone's thinking about lunchtime. Oh, no.
I would have made a joke, but I'm not very funny, unfortunately, so.
I'm saying nothing. First question, please.
Hi, I'm Deb. I am the Director for Insights and AI at Friesland Campina. I'm wondering, great presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
How does an orchestrator compare to trying to build this in-house?
So I want to be clear on something. Some of this can and should still be built in-house, right? We as an organization don't tell you to throw out all the work that you've done if you've been investing for a long time. Rather, it's about how do you get the best of all worlds, right? And let me give you a very practical example. If you've decided that, you know, as of a couple years ago, you were going to really incorporate a model specifically and kind of refine and tune over time, that's great. You can bring your model and use that in the context of the Airia platform to help orchestrate the pipelines and the project-related work that you're doing. But one of the things that I talked about earlier was around this concept of innovation in the model libraries, right, and how quickly that's changing. So most organizations today in practice don't want to get fixed in or locked into only one model unless they know that it's really perfect for those use cases. So what we do is really facilitate that incorporation of the work that you've already done with a model, with a given pipeline, allow you to bring that into scope of really more the control and orchestration that we provide through our platform so that you can take advantage of that work, but create that additional layer of sort of domain control, governance, and application of security processes that you've already baked in today to make sure that things are being done the right way without slowing down sort of the rate of innovation and progress that you want to make.
Thank you.
One more question. Anybody? Going once? Going twice? There's always a little pause. Alex, thank you. I love the chart with all the bits on it, and I love the way there were so many phones held up to take a picture of that one.
By the way, I'm happy to share the slides. I probably should have said that so people didn't worry about taking pictures, but either way, thanks very much.
It's a good way to do it. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Oh, we get there. Thank you.